Hello everyone, Helen here. Thanks for dropping by to see me today. It's really lovely to have you here. A big welcome if you're new, and if you're not new and you've been here lots of times before, well, welcome back. And I live in Durham in the northeast of England, and I'm a piano teacher, work from home, and the rest of the time I do all sorts of creative things which I love sharing with you, and also I love being outside for little walks and just enjoying all the simple things out there that we can so easily take for granted. Yeah, and then I just love sharing everything with you, hopefully to bring a little bit of joy into your day. So as I record this, I have not long got back from being away. I've been up to Scotland, not quite the far north of Scotland, but pretty close. And I've kind of had 2 holidays in one, because we went in the camper van, and then I had a lovely couple of days with my lovely friend Margaret in Aberdeen. So there'll be more of those another time. It takes me ages to make camper van videos. But hopefully next time I will be taking you on the camper van trip, and I will tell you a bit more about my stay in Aberdeen as well. But that's for another time. So this week I just thought I'd make you a little podcast about the latest 2 bears that I've made, and they're both knitted ones. And I just thought I'd kind of chat about them because they're quite different and compare what they were like to make. And anyway, so the first bear, if you've been watching regularly, you will already have seen the head because this is a bear by one of my absolute favourite toy designers, and Cinthia Vallet. But the bear is now complete and has clothes on, as you can see here. So this pattern is called Myrtil Bear, and although Cinthia Vallet talks about it as a boy, as soon as I saw the head finished, I knew that mine was a girl. And in fact, when she was completely finished, I looked at her and I wasn't even trying to think of what to call her. She just more or less told me herself that she was called Margaret. So, I know that sounds weird, but she really did. I didn't, she looked at me, she said, "I'm called Margaret." So I thought, hello, Margaret. Anyway, so Cinthia Vallet is just an absolutely superb toy designer, in my opinion. And I have knitted several of her toys already, including 4 bears, 4 tutu bears, and which are smaller than this one here. I'll show you the size comparison shortly. And I thought I'd have a go at making this bigger bear. And so it's knitted using Cascade Heritage 4-ply, which is 75% merino wool and it's 25% nylon, I think. So I think it's something that can be used for socks and other things as well. And I used 2mm double-pointed needles, and the pattern, if you're not familiar with me telling you about these before, starts at the nose and it's knit all in one. There's no sewing together at all. The only tiny seam comes right at the end, and you join that with Kitchener stitch. And so the absolute hardest part about making all of the Cinthia Vallet patterns that I've tried is when you start it. So the nose is quite fiddly, but once you've got going, once you've done a few rounds, it's okay, but it takes quite a while to do the nose. And I think probably the second most fiddly thing is doing the little ears here. But the rest of it is actually less fiddly than Tsutsu Bear, because obviously it's a bit bigger, so you haven't got such narrow arms and legs. But it's just, they're such beautifully written patterns. At the risk of sounding boring, because I've said it before, you just led through she holds your hand all the way through the pattern, and as long as you don't mind it going slowly, it's no good. I wouldn't enjoy knitting these if I had a deadline, I don't think. But yeah, otherwise you just go slowly, you just read the pattern carefully, and she always guides you along. So I think, there's those two fiddly things which are tricky, the starting the nose and doing the ears. And probably then the next hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is stuffing the toy and getting the stuffing right. I did when I finished making the head and I'd put the eyes in, I did then lightly stuff it so that I had the shape for sewing on the nose and mouth. But otherwise, I didn't stuff it as I go. Sometimes when I've made the tutu bears, I have actually stuffed the arms when I finished making the arms, for example. But I decided just to wait right till the end. And I thought you might enjoy seeing how this bear was stuffed. My top tip for stuffing toys, you may have heard me say more than once before, is always just to take tiny bits of stuffing at a time. And it took me a long time to stuff a bear of this size because I was taking such tiny bits. But you do that not only to try and keep the shape, because there's a lot of shaping in this bear, and so using tiny bits ensures that you can really notice all of the shaping that you've knitted into it. And also you're trying not to have the toy looking lumpy or having the fabric overstretched, just having it just right. So yeah, I thought you might be interested to see how Margaret was stuffed. And I'm using 100% wool stuffing in this case, which makes the bear a little bit heavier and also really lovely for anybody who wants to have a bear to hug. And when you've hugged it for a while, the wool stuffing warms up and it just feels so lovely. So here we go. Here's me stuffing Margaret. So when I'd finished all of the stuffing, then had to do Kitchener stitch to mend the hole. And when you do that, it's difficult to avoid having holes either side, but in the pattern, Cinthia Vallet just says, leave a long bit of yarn and then you can sew up the holes. And I sewed them up reasonably well, not perfect, but enough so that the stuffing doesn't come out. And then I got busy actually when I was away making her jumper, which is a top-down jumper. You knit the yoke and then divide for the sleeves. So again, there's no seaming to do afterwards. It's all knitted in one, just a few ends to tie in, and then made her little socks here as well. I thought the colour would go nicely with the jumper, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about the colour of the socks. Anyway, Margaret likes them and they're keeping her feet warm, so, that's fine. The jumper was made from leftover sock yarn that's by Sparkle Ducks. I used that to make the birthday socks for my daughter in January. And yeah, it's the colourway called Unicorn Field. Really lovely. And the socks are made from one of my favourite toy making yarns, which is Drops Alpaca 4-ply. I just like the fuzziness of it. It's really nice. It makes nice cosy socks as well. So yeah, so I think that's Margaret. I think that's all there is to say. She's a slightly different shape to Tutu Bear. She's kind of, I don't know, she just looks like a crescent moon to me. So she's not really standing and she's not really sitting. She's more sitting than standing though. And her head looks up quite a way there. And if we just compare her to Tutu Bear, their heads are definitely, I don't know if you can see there, going in different directions. Tutu Bear is definitely looking down more, and the Myrtil Bear is looking up. And they are quite different in size. So the big bear is twice the length of Tutu Bear. But yeah, I mean, Tutu Bear is absolutely lovely, but kind of a something to hug in your hand, whereas this bigger one is really made for hugging to yourself, because it's just big enough, not too big, but just big enough there. So yeah, so that was the experience of knitting that particular pattern by Cinthia Vallet. And the other bear that I made, the pattern is actually called Good Bear. I know I called today's episode Two Good Bears, and that's really because I like the idea of this one being called Good Bear, so I called them both good. Anyway, so this one here is a gorgeous little bear by another really excellent toy designer, Susan B. Anderson. And actually I have a book, and I think this was probably the first knitted toy making book that I had for a very long time. I did have one of the old Jean Greenhow books from years ago as well, but this was kind of a more recent times book that I bought. It's this one called Itty Bitty Toys, and it was through this book that I actually learnt to knit in the round. So I didn't learn to knit socks first, I learnt to knit toys using this book, and I've knitted lots of the things out of here. Especially the pattern for the sock monkey. I think I've knitted at least 6 or 7 monkeys. Yeah, I've knitted quite a few of those. And I've also knitted the teddy bear out of here, but although the things in here are knitted in the round, they're not knitted all in one like this latest pattern by Susan Anderson. This bear was knitted all in one, but unlike the Cinthia Vallet pattern, this was knitted from the feet up. So you didn't get to know the little bear until right at the end. So you knit a leg and then the other leg and join them up. And even the arms are added afterwards, but you pick up stitches. You don't actually sew them on. And I've used an Icelandic yarn, Let Lopi, which I think is an Aran weight yarn. I use 3.75mm needles, so it gives quite a nice tight fabric. But I I'd had that yarn for absolutely ages, and it was just waiting to make a bear. It's just so lovely and hairy, and I thought, yeah, it's just perfect for a bear. So I've mostly used dark brown, but I used a little bit of contrast for the snout there. And it was very, very straightforward to knit. I would say it was quite hard picking up the stitches for the arms. It's quite hard to start knitting in the round from them because it's, I don't know, it's just because the needles are right tight up against the body when you do that. But otherwise it was very straightforward, and the pattern is very well explained, so there's no problems there. So he has his tiny little ears here, which, yeah, they were okay. I did have to pick up stitches for those as well. And he has a little tail at the back too. And he actually came away on holiday with us because I'd finished making them just before we went, and I wanted to make the little jumper. So I took the yarn with me. So it's a little colourwork jumper, and actually it's meant to have 3 colours in it, and I didn't realise, and I didn't take the yarn away with me. So this version has just got two colours in it. The pattern also comes with a pattern for trousers and a little jacket and a little hat. But once I'd made the jumper, I just thought he looked perfect just like that. And Susan Nance actually says in the pattern you might choose not to have clothes for your bear, or just a jumper. So yeah, I definitely knew that a jumper was all that this little bear needed. So I finished making the jumper because it obviously didn't take me very long. It's very small while we were away. So I soaked it in the basin in the camper van, and then I wasn't quite sure how to block it because it is a slightly funny shape of a jumper, and that's really because it's got to fit, the shape of the bear where the arms are sewn onto the sides. So it's a little bit tricky to lie the jumper out flat. So I think it was actually Phil and my husband who said, well, why don't you just put it on the bear and block it that way? So, yeah, good idea. Thank you. So that's what I did. I just put the damp jumper onto the bear, and then just wrapped him in a towel until he was dried out. And that worked very well, and so it fits his shape perfectly. And I did ask him what his name was. I looked at him and said, can you tell me your name? And he didn't tell me much at all. So I was a bit puzzled. But when I actually showed him to my son, and I said, is he by any chance telling you what his name is? Because he won't really tell me. And he straight away said Arthur. So this little good bear is called Arthur. So we have Arthur and Margaret, who are going to be good friends together. And I don't know whether they'll stay living in my house or not. Sometimes, obviously, I'm making a toy and I know it's going to be a gift for somebody in particular. But other times I'm just making them because I love them and just want to have a go at making them. So I don't know whether these 2 bears will live here forever or just for a little while and then go to another home. And I think the final thing I wanted to say actually was I think overall I prefer to knit from the head down, because I just love the fact that you this sounds silly, you kind of bond with the toy straight away as soon as the head's done. Whereas this one was, I didn't see his little character right till the very end, but it was worth waiting for anyway. So yeah, so there we go, 2 good bears. And I think that's all for today. I am going to be back again next week, hopefully taking you on a camper van trip. And until then, take good care of yourself, keep nice and busy, and I will see you again very soon. Okay then, bye.